in those villages about their journey and how microfinance has helped them. So that's one. I think it's a good idea that we ask CIFA to help the sector. And we had the Banking Association of South Africa at our portfolio committee a few months ago, probably a few weeks ago. And they have said that they're struggling to give loans to small business. And here is a clear example of microfinance institutes helping the poor, the unbankable, the marginalized in our townships and villages. So what is it that they are doing that our formal banks, the top five, are not doing? And the president, in last week's address, in his economic recovery program, he has hinted that if banks are not in a position to get the money out and decrease their risk profile, then we might want to explore getting some of that money that's meant for COVID relief to small business and microfinance to our communities in the rural and township areas. So I'd want this committee to formally follow that up, that to see how we can get some of that money that the president has asked that comes to the needy, gets through the needy through these development finance institutes. I think we may have forgot not to get CIFA in the room today to get a response to some of the issues and concerns that they've raised. So it would have been nice to get the department or the minister to respond to the Microfinance Association and say, if this is the recommendations and if we as the portfolio support this, how can the department and CIFA and government mainstream microfinance? Because it's a good idea, but we're all going to feel good just now, but we need a formal approach. So I recommend that this portfolio does support this association. Thank you, Chair. Get the department or the minister to respond to the Microfinance Association and say, if this is the recommendations and if
thank you, Honorable Jacobs. The next speaker is Honorable Muthenjana. Over to you, Honorable Muthenjana.
Mainstream microfinance.
Thank you very much, Nkensile Mthamashitulu. Also, I would like to join my colleagues for the presentation. It sounds convincing, of course, but nevertheless, remember we are a committee here. We are not necessarily here to praise the bait for flying. Thank you very much, Nkensile. We are here to make sure that they account on all what they are telling us here. My colleagues. Now, to support what I'm saying here, as a committee, we need to see a database of all the people who have already been benefited. Because we understand there are people, as he said, our presenter said that there are people who benefited, mostly women in the rural areas. Yes, indeed, it sounds convincing. He sounds more like a person who knows what he's talking about. But still, we would like to see a database of all the people that they have helped. Yes, indeed, it sounds as a committee. And then another issue here, I just want to know, we just want to know as a committee, is there any research unit of all the people within the structures of DMA that goes out there and play a monitoring role and check the beneficiaries on your programs, whether the money you roll out is for indeed, it does benefit, it does serve the purpose. We should like to know that. And then again, we should like to also check, as much as we all know that there is corruption in our country. So we want to know from you whether you have a system in place that counter ghost beneficiaries of your funding program. We want to know that as well as a committee. And then another one also, we want you to provide us with a breakdown per province as to how many people have you funded, or how many people are in your funding programs benefited, in as far as women, youth, people living with disability, because I'm a little bit disappointed here. I've heard you spoke about women in our rural areas, that's correct, but I didn't hear you unless if I'm standing to be corrected, I didn't hear you speaking anything about people living with disabilities. Remember, they are there, it's a reality. They are our people and they are real suffering as well. So you need to include them. But I didn't hear you speak about them as well. And then also, we should like to know exactly a number of the jobs that you created in terms of numbers. You must tell us exactly how many, the figures as to this. You are proud because you've created so much jobs, and here they are. And then maybe lastly, Chairperson, I think it will be best if this department supply this committee with their criteria or the criteria they use in selecting qualifying beneficiaries, because we know that there must be a criteria that they follow. We need to know which one is that. In terms of documentation needed from applicants, the level of exposure, EI, for example, how does you go to your target? How do you arrive to how do you invite the interested people actually? And then also, lastly, how do they get to know you as this entity? How do people get to know you? How do you reach out to the people, if I'll put it that way? I think that will be the last question, Chairperson. But also, thanking very much as well for the presentation. It sounds very much convincing per se. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thanks, Honorable Mtenjana. The next speaker on my list is Honorable Bridget. Over to you, Honorable Camilla.
Thank you, Chair, and greetings to all members and the presenters. Chairperson, let me also join the queue by welcoming the presentation. I hope you'll bear with me because I always speak without my video because of the problem of the network of the area where I am, Chair. Chairperson, let me also join my colleagues by saying I'm very pleased, Chairperson, that the DMA is about giving a chance in their introductory part, giving the chance to the poor and the hardworking. Because according to our language, we are saying, which means that if you are doing something, is then where the government will be able to pick you, unlike sitting at home and blaming the government that they are not supporting you. So you must encourage our people to be creative and to start initiating something so that we'll be able to support them. However, Chairperson, I'm covered with few questions, but I just want to check. My first question will be, I want to understand how to become a member of this progressive initiative. My second question will be, is the DMA pleased about the inroads they have made to 7 provinces? Because if I've learned through the presentation, they have indicated that they have made inroads in 7 provinces. Is the response positively? Is our people coming to this DMA for the support? Are people aware of these good initiatives? So I want to check if they are very happy with these 7 provinces, or is there anything that they need us to make sure that we also assist them in making sure that our people are aware of these good initiatives. My last question, Chair, will be, I wanted also to speak with people living with disability, but the honorable member also have captured me, because I think that if we allocate according to vulnerable groups, they also form part. So I want to check if is there any budget, specifically if they have, as they have indicated in the presentation, that the women have benefited and the youth. And I've seen the percentage. Was there any specific percentage made to the people living with disabilities? If it's not utilized, then how are we going to make sure that they reach to those people? Because we have people who are doing some small businesses who are living with disability, and I just want to check if is there any initiative to reach to those people, Chairperson, and whether all these 7 provinces, are they pleased with the inroads that they have made already in the 7 provinces? But generally, Chair, this is a good initiative. I think ours is just to make sure that we do monitor and support and make sure that we give support even in terms of the recommendation that they have made to us as the portfolio committee. They are very promising, because our people are sitting on daily basis in the streets, selling peanuts, selling bananas, in the sun, in the wind, and we still have red tapes in other financial institutions. But looking at this one, Chairperson, they have made our day as the members in the portfolio committee. But we will be more pleased to make sure that even where we live, we will be able to see the routes that have been made by the very institution. So that is my question, Chairperson. Thank you so much.
King, is she still there? Is Honorable Tomelan still there?
No,
I'm done, Chair. Did you hear all my questions?
Yes, I heard them, and I believe the entity also heard you.
Oh my God.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. The next speaker is Prof. Msnang. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I also would like to join those that have commended the presentation. What impressed me most was that there was a focus on problem areas. I think it's very good for us as the portfolio committee to talk about problem areas to people who have got first-hand experience of this. Because if you do not mention or focus on problem areas, we tend to think everything is honky-dory, the department is doing well. Meanwhile, when we go to the communities, there are very bitter complaints that what we're talking about, they've never seen. So it was nice to see the community in Polokwane that is being trained. And therefore, that is my first question. How do communities in the rural areas contact the trainers? How does it happen? Where do they start? Because almost all of them, they need this training. The second question, of course, is about success stories. We always get very disappointing and disconcerting statistics which say that of 100 businesses that have been started, only about 30% are sustainable. So if there are more than those 30% success stories or even more, I think we would like to visit them, because for us as a committee to do oversight on things that we have never seen is not realistic. We must really talk about things that we have seen, and therefore either praise or criticize the department on that basis. So please, if you have success stories, make them known to us, as also as the details of conducting those people, so that we can visit them. So that when we go to our communities who say all is doom and gloom as far as they are concerned, then we've got one or two success stories to give them as examples that this thing is working. Because with over 2 million people that have lost jobs, this department is going to be inundated with people who would like to go to business. So my first question, therefore, has support from that eventuality, that we've got over 2 million people who have lost jobs, adding to many that are jobless. And when we receive reports that over 1 billion grants have been distributed, we tend to think, Okay, we can pat ourselves on the shoulder and say all is well, but millions more need to be helped. So number one, how do they access the trainers? And number two, what are the success stories? Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Prof. The next speaker is Honorable April. Honorable April, the stage is yours, please.
Chairperson, I think we've lost him. I just see a hand of Honorable Kruger again.
Honorable Kruger, do you want to have a second bite before they respond?
Chair, I don't want to ask another question. I just want to make a proposal that the sooner, at the end of the year, we will have opportunity to do some constituency work, or maybe we can do some oversight work, maybe in the beginning of next year as well, and then we can talk to the MA so that we go and visit a few of the businesses that they finance. I think it will be very interesting oversight visit, and so then we can see with our own eyes. It's just a proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. I think it will be included on part of our deliberation recommendations by our secretary, and we'll take it from there. Thank you so much. Can I now invite
Chair, just before.
Yes.
My apologies, Chair, just before, just the last bite.
Yes.
I did put a question in the chat group, but I think for me the key question is just on the delinquency ratio, the bad debt book, and the amount of write-offs that is happening. And if they lend it, if they get wholesale funding from CFA at 3 below prime, what is the rate that they giving it to the beneficiaries? I just want to see what is the margin of profit. So if they can respond to those also, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Jacobs. I will now invite our presenter to respond. I think you are a team. You had questions, some were questions, some were comments, but let me also indicate my appreciation that this is really a good presentation. It gives us hope. Over to you.
Chairperson, it's King. May I, there is in a chat box, there is a question from Honorable Matulelwa. I should think maybe the presenter can see it and then respond on it, where she says, Honorable Chair, the presentation is very impressive. My question is, which systematic approach are they using to make sure that women and people living with disability are 100% reached in the rural areas and townships? I think he got that question. It's a question from Honorable Matulelo. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, King. I think they have noted the question. I'm now handing over to them to respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Quite a number of questions. So I'll try and get to all of them as quickly as I can. And then I think I'm also open to further engage beyond this webinar. So just to take the first question, thank you, Honorable Chairperson, from the question from Honorable Kruger. What are members in terms of DMA when we refer to members? So DMA is an association, it's a member association. So a DMA does not, do these services that we are talking about. but its members. An example of a member of a DMA is the Small Enterprise Foundation. I think at some point they presented to this committee, and then other institutions like those ones. So they are the members of DMA. So DMA is putting them together so that we go with a common goal. So I hope that question is answered. And then Honorable Jacobs, I think he came with a more number of just recommendations instead of questions, unless if maybe I missed something. There was no question in his point. And then I have a number of questions from Honorable Mtenjan. So can we provide a database of all the people that we are serving? Each institution has definitely a database that we all the people that they are there and they are served. So if there's a need for that, I'm sure we can be able to provide. It will need to, because putting it together, it might need some work, but definitely yes, we can. The database is there. Does the money that we provide serve the purpose? Absolutely, without a doubt. Our clients use the money to make a difference in their lives. The pictures that I showed, it's people that we know for sure we have helped, and they are continue to succeed. Of course, when you help people, some will fall on the way, but there's a way of trying to pick them up, and then some, they will struggle on their own. But definitely, our clients are benefiting. In terms of corruption, I think our systems are very, very rare. We would find a way where someone is using we're NGOs, so there's zero corruption happening around this. So we have ways of guarding this in all our institutions. So breakdown per province of the number of clients that can be done. In terms of the question of people with disabilities. So one thing I can assure the committee is we do not discriminate against people with disability. So what we know we have not been doing, which is something we are taking the recommendation, is we have not been specifying that this person is disabled, this person is not disabled. But anyone who comes and has a business, disabled or not disabled, we consider them. So anybody, in other words, anyone can be a client of one of our member institutions, as long as they have a business, their purpose is to do business. So we have no discrimination, and I'm sure we have clients that are disabled. It's just that we have not indicated whether this person is disabled or not. And we don't have specifically designed products for disabled people, but we do not discriminate against them. In terms of criteria to select the people, I think even in my presentation, I did emphasize that we actually go to the people. People don't necessarily, they don't come to us, we go to them. So we go to a village where they've never heard about us. We introduce ourselves to the leadership structures. We go to the councillors, we go to the traditional leaders, we introduce ourselves and say, we want to come and assist the people of this particular community. This is what we do, and based on what we present, the leadership has to first agree and approve. Then after that, we can start operating. So the people don't come to us, we go to them. So in all the places where we're operating, we went to the people, and we have staff who are there closer to the people, where the people can reach them when they have questions. Then Honorable Tlomelang, you asked the question how to become a member So I was not clear whether the member of an association or to become a client of a DMFI. So to become a member of our association, we have institutions that are developmental focused. Then they can be eligible to become a member. They can get an invitation if they want to, and then we can be able to assess if they qualify to be a member. And we also have associate members. Associate members is people who have interest in the kind of work that we are doing. And then we have criteria also to allow them in. So you can feel free to contact us and we can talk about that. But for our client, for the clients, the people that we are serving, is we go to them, and then based on the criteria that we use for them to be able to access the loans, then they will be. So all institutions, they have a little bit, but just to share you a little bit about our methodology, when we go to the village, we don't know the people at all. And because we don't know the people, we use the community people to select themselves, and then we just vet them, check them if they're eligible, and then we are able to provide the services. So they trust each other, they know each other better. So we use the community to be able to select who can be able to access the funds. The question of people with disability, I've tackled that. Are we pleased with the end routes made so far? Of course, our goal and our vision is to reach as many people as possible, as many poor households as possible. So, of course, we are not satisfied. We are grateful. We are happy with the work that we've done or we are continuing to do, but we want to reach more people. So our goal is to see this country having as less poor people as possible, people able to take care of themselves. So that is our main concern. Honorable Msimang posed the question, how do communities in rural areas contact the trainers of the picture I shared? So these are some of the benefits that our clients get when they are members of the institution. So there's different types of training, but our powerful training method, which is proven globally, is peer-to-peer learning. So we create a platform where people start learning from each other using different tools to assist them in doing that. So when the people are in our belong to an institution, then they can access some of those trainings when they are already clients. In terms of the portfolio committee visiting our clients, yes, we do have success stories. Yes, we welcome everyone to come and visit. You contact our offices, then arrangements can be made with different institutions and those clients that you can visit and see their businesses. So we are very much, actually we encourage that the community do visit our clients and see the work that we are doing, because I could be talking here, but you actually see what the impact and the changes that the clients, because you'll be able to ask them questions and they will be able to respond to that. So in terms of the visit, we are welcoming. I think I might have the last question that is you said is on the chat, Mr. Kunene. I unfortunately haven't read it. If you can just give it to me again so I can be able to
respond. The question is, which systematic approach are you using to make sure that women and people living with disabilities are 100% reached in rural areas and townships?
Okay, I think I have covered that we don't necessarily have a system that specifically is focused on people with disabilities. However, we are not discriminating, and I can tell you for sure, among our institution, there are clients who we have who are disabled and running businesses.
I think there was the last question from Honorable Jacobs when he, on the second bite, when he was asking about the whether do you have the delinquency rate and then the bad debt book and amount of it's off. That's the question that was asked by Honorable Jacobs the last when he came from the second time.
Yeah. Can they
So I think-
respond on that one?
Yeah. So just to deal with the, our generally our repayment or collection rate ranges from around 98%. So our collection rate is very high. Our bad debts are very as low as 3%, or it's quite low. We write off very low amounts.
Thank you.
And your interest?
Yeah, we're still waiting for the interest rate.
Oh, there's the question on the interest rate. So the question of interest rate, of course, it's always a sensitive topic. But you'll be happy to hear that our members charge about 10% per 1,000 rand loan.
Thank you. Honorable members.
Madam Chair, sorry. Madam Chair?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think we need more clarity on the interest rate. Because if you look at prime rate today, it's about, what's it, 6%? It's actually lower, it's about 5%. And they get less, 3% less prime. So they get about, let's say they get money for 3%. Then there's a markup of 7%. So we just need some clarity. I mean, this is a very important question. And I would like to know more about the interest rate. And the question actually from Honorable Jacobs was, what is the profit margin? So we want to know what is the profit margin above what they get money for. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, can you respond onto that one, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Chairperson, can I also be allowed to do a follow-up?
I will give you that space. I'll give you that space, Honorable Mtenja.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's allow him to respond on that one of interest rates.
Okay, so honorable members, so given the fact that CIFA supports DMFIs, I think I just want to emphasize that CIFA is not the only a funder of the MFIs. So it just gives a portion. So CIFA at this point, as we speak, is not able to fully fund the loan book of our MFIs. Is not able to do that. So beyond that, there are funds that are sourced elsewhere in other commercial banks. And in terms of so I just want to cover the point where CIFA charges less 3% and then all that. So I wanted to. So in terms of the profit margin, I'm not in a position to actually answer that question, but it's something that you can get clarity on, given looking at the all the expenses, the operational expenses, and all that. So I'm just not in a position to be able to respond to that question now as we speak.
Thank you, honorable members. Honorable Mtenjana wanted to make some follow-up. I will allow him to do that. I think on the last one is indicating that he's not in the position to can give that clarity, but he will work on it and then we'll receive it. I think it does make sense because the question is just arose. Honorable Mtenjana, can we make some follow-up, please?
Thank you very much, Chairperson, once more. Chairperson, I think the speaker, it's either he misunderstands the question or it's just that he did not answer it at all. This is a committee. This is the last institution or last place where we can do discriminations. When we ask a question about our people who are living with disability, it's a reality. We know they are there. They are our people. We love them. So we are not discriminating them. I'll just give him an example. You find some buildings whereby they are accommodated. For example, a toilet or a bathroom, if I'll put it that way. You find that there is a building, then there's a bathroom for them, and there is a bathroom for other people. So is that a discrimination? No, but they are catering for them as well. Now, if you come here, you are beginning to make us doubt now, because you are telling us that you don't differentiate, but that is not the answer. We want to know from you that how many, give us a database, how many, because we know many institutions, they seem to discriminate them. We know it's a fact, it's there. So we want to know in your institution, if you cater for them, how many are they? It's not a discrimination, it's a fact. We want to know, we want them to be on board, we want to accommodate them because they are previously disadvantaged. If you will know, me and you will know that they are the most people who are vulnerable in our community. They are the most people who are not being taken serious. So as Parliament, we are taking them serious. And when we talk about them or ask a question about them, it's not about discriminating them, but it's also, we want to include them as well. In fact, to us, they are more special than any other one. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. Can you respond on this one?
Yeah, thanks, Honorable Chair. I think Honorable Mtenjan, so my response was not saying the question when it's asked, it's discriminating. My response was, on our side, we have not necessarily been keeping a register of who is disabled or not, but I believe we do have. And we're not saying the question is discriminating, and I was saying we are not discriminating. So in other words, we don't have any policies that hinders disabled people to come in, but we take the advice that you're saying, and also that question, it's taken, it's noted that, recognizing of the disabled people, and also, trying to work towards, having products that are suitable for them. So that is taken into account. So I was not saying the question is discriminating. I was saying we don't have a door that is closed for them, but we have not been, saying this person is disabled as we are accepting them. So my apologies if that was misunderstood.
Thank you. I think on this one, if maybe you can try just to go back and check, because it's a policy matter which it says that even all the departments now are bound to observe that particular principle of making sure that they are inclusive. So I think he may provide such statistics in to the committee if currently you don't have those figures. But the point the honorable members was trying to say that as much as we know that we've got a woman which we call them vulnerable as well as youth, let's also people with disability be included in each and everything we are doing in South Africa, because they are part of us. I think that's the point he's trying to make before us here. But all in all, thank you so much for the presentation.
Chairperson,
Yes, King.
not to disturb you.
Yes.
There's a hand from Honorable Jacobs.
Okay. Honorable Jacobs, can you get in so that I can close the matter?
Okay, no, I know we pushed for time, and the other presentation on how Plain Township is important, but I think the answers on the finance and the interest rates and the profit margins were not satisfactory, and I think something we need to just follow up again as the portfolio committee. We don't want to support Amazonis or loan sharks. We need to ensure that they comply with the National Credit Regulation Act, and ensure that the lending rate, which is the critical thing, the poor mustn't be exploited. And so that point, I just want to make it very clear. And we need CIFA to come and respond to this. We don't need a response from the association. I think for us, the numbers don't add up, but it's a point that we must just note as the portfolio committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable.
There's another hand from Barbara Calvin.
Okay. Can she get in?
Thank you, Honorable Chair and honorable members. I just want to assist my colleague to answer that question. I'm a board member of the DMA, and I'm a longtime consultant in the sector since 1993. I think it's important for everyone to understand that out of the 5 members of the Development Microfinance Association, 4 of them are not-for-profit organizations. 2 of them are registered public benefit organizations. And the one that is a for-profit entity is actually not making much profit, and it's the one that's working in the developmental housing space. So it's not really part of this discussion on the micro enterprise credit space. So also, if you look at the 4 that are lending to the micro enterprises, only one has achieved a break-even point, and that's what we call achieving sustainability. All the others actually need ongoing grants to cover their operating expenses. The one that has achieved a break-even point is the largest. It's the Small Enterprise Foundation, and it takes any surplus that it earns, it takes to then fund more outreach and growth. It's going right back into plowing it back into the good work that it's doing. So I thought that would be interesting to the members to understand. Thank you.
Thanks, honorable members, and thanks to Barbara. What I can say to honorable members, if ever you feel there is anything which you still need clarity, you have got that obligation to can do it through the committee, portfolio committee secretary, to the relevant department or entity, so that we be clarified as the portfolio committee. Indeed, our role is to defend our society, because we want to deal with this issue of exploitation, as the Honorable Jacobs has indicated, but not necessarily that we are putting pressure onto the entity. Is our role to do that. So I would request honorable members to allow the entity to leave, and then we move forward. If ever there is anything which we feel we still need to do some follow-up, you are at liberty to can do that. Agreed, honorable members? Thank you. We'll now move to the next. Honorable members, let us allow them to leave us, and then we'll remain with the issue of the next item, which is the Gauteng bill.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I'll-
you very much, everyone, for the opportunity, and happy to engage further with the committee.
Thank you, Isi. Let us now invite the next presentation before us. MEC, you are leading the delegation. Can you lead us on this one?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and good morning to all honorable members and your administrative staff. Madam Chair, I brought a team with me, but I'm going to request that I do a few opening remarks. My opening remarks are going to be very limited because I want to give the opportunity to the presenters to take the committee through the nitty-gritties of the bill. Let me thank the committee for inviting us. And as a way of my opening remarks, Chair, what I have to say is that the Gauteng provincial government has developed a number of policies and strategies aimed at fast-tracking economic empowerment and transformation in response to the intractable and skewed structure of the Gauteng economy, wherein the majority of the population are still left on the periphery, as honorable members would be aware. The aim is to structurally transform the Gauteng economy in order to bring the historically disadvantaged majority into productive mainstream activity as owners, as wealth creators, and as asset builders. So this bill, Honorable Madam Chair, is a critical tool in the Gauteng provincial government's quest to radically transform the Gauteng economy through its TER program, the Township Economy Revitalization Program. We strongly believe that it is a game changer in our quest to revitalize and mainstream the township economy and move towards a new wave of authentic empowerment for township and enterprise and Black-owned businesses. The bill aims to provide for the promotion and development of the township economy and to create a conducive environment for the attainment of this purpose. This bill, importantly, will make it easier, more affordable, and quicker to register and open and operate a business in the township. It will also loosen the red tape and remove bottlenecks and improve the ease of doing business for township enterprises. Madam Chair, I want to leave it here, and then with your permission, allow me then to hand over to the head of policy development in Gauteng, Mr. Mbada, who will then introduce the technical team and then indicate to the committee who's going to be taking us through the presentation. Mr. Mbada, please.
Mr. Bata, can you come in, please? King, is Mr. Bata still in?
Madam Chair, if he's struggling, we can get Matupani to proceed because he's the one who's going to take the committee through the presentation.
Let him do so, please. We are running short of time now.
Thank you, MEC. Good morning, honorable members, MEC and the HOD, but also my colleagues that are in the meeting. So there are a couple of colleagues that are also going to be maybe contributing to some of the slides. As mentioned by the MEC, my name is Matupani Masha. So I'm part of the team that is working on the bill in the province. If possible, maybe may I ask that I be allowed to co-share or co-host the meeting so I can share and control the slides from my side.
Yes, King, can you assist us in doing that?
I've done it, Chairperson. It can be able to put the presentation.
Thank you. Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes, I can see it from my side.
Yes, thank you. We can.
Okay, thanks a lot. So I think the outline of my presentation, it will just be an introduction. I think MEC has already covered a lot of the introduction, but also we'll just quickly just summarize the journey to date, because as you know that honorable members, the bill is not necessarily the beginning of a journey. It's almost like a culmination. We've started way back in 2014 with programs around township economy. We'll also zoom into the objects of the bill, but also the provisions, especially the clauses that are inherently defines every sort of provisions of the bill. And then we'll look at the constitutional and legal considerations, and then we'll then conclude and take some advice and inputs. Thank you. So just in terms of the introduction, I suppose, without necessarily belaboring it, MEC has already mentioned that basically this is part of the deliberate actions that the province of Gauteng intends to take in terms of transforming townships into fully fledged commercial zones, where, for example, we know that at the convergence of certain myriad of rules and regulations, there is often a bit of a problem there. So this will have both in terms of streamlining some of those rules in terms of where and how a business can be run in the township, but also in terms of once that is done, we are able then to link support to such businesses as well, but also making it easier and to open and formalize a business so that we can actually enable these enterprises to create jobs. As we know globally, every government across the world is looking at small businesses in terms of creation of the new jobs for the economy. So we then believe that this will actually go a long way in helping us also contribute as the township to the GDP of the province and of the country as well. So basically, we are currently at the consultation phase, and we basically are soliciting inputs from various stakeholders around the critical provisions of the bill. So yes, we will get into some of those details as we proceed. But just to track back a bit, so the township economy program basically also, as you recall, was part of the transformation and modernization and reindustrialization program of the province, where, for example, one of the objectives is that we needed to transform townships from being consumption to production centers, where they are able to contribute to obviously GDP, but also directly to job creation. Up to that point, what we picked up in the province is that township, 70 to 80% of residents of our province live in the townships, and a larger percentage of those still, commute to work in other areas of the province, which puts a bit of strain on their pockets in terms of traveling and transportation costs. So these objectives really around ensuring that townships can be places where people can live, can play, can work. It's quite important, and it's one of those anchor programs that we've been implementing. So the overall objective is of the strategy is just to create the enabling environment for the township economy, but also establishing social and economic value of the township economy, ensure that the township economy becomes key player in the province. However, just to say that the township economy program had several what you call key strategic focus area. One of those strategic focus area was on how do we ensure that there is an appropriate legal and regulatory framework to support the township economy. So, and these pretty much, I think, came out of consultations in the process of developing the township economy strategy. There was a widespread consultations in the communities where we went to a lot of the townships, consulted widely, and of course the issue around the how our policies, regulations, or even bylaws contradicts at the point of implementation becomes a focal point in terms of the program. So hence, it then was elevated as one of the critical strategic focus area in the program. So at the moment, as a province, we have adopted the Gauteng, growing Gauteng together, and the program has several critical, focus areas. And as you can see, one of those is obviously the Township Economy Revitalization Action Plan. So out of the Township Economy Program, there are certain high-level programs that we are focusing on to ensure that we really are focusing on making that impact in the township. And these are some of the critical focus action areas that we are currently pursuing as a province. The first one being we change how townships are regulated and governed, and pretty much the Township Economic Development Bill and eventually the Act responds to this action in terms of the action plan. And then there are other focus areas, for example, setting up better procurement rules and programmatic support, making sure that we have dedicated financing for firms in the township, but also deploying installation repair maintenance initiatives to ensure that there's maintenance and of facilities where we are able to link young people to these opportunities as well in terms of maintenance, repair, and installation. We also promote consolidated buying via platforms with private sector partners. We promote manufacturing clusters, and also issue on land availability of land for specific purpose. So the commercial rapid release initiative is quite critical to that. But we also focus on the township economy, the taxi economy. As you know, that you can never really talk about a township and not necessarily put the taxi industry at the center of that. So there are initiatives focused on the taxi industry, and also, of course, critically also the township backyard real estate initiatives. So that in a nutshell are some of the high-level programs that are anchoring the current Township Economy Action Plan. But most of these, for us to be able to really achieve some of these programs, we will definitely need to change and streamline how we regulate and govern the townships as a focus area. Just as a summary today, so basically in terms of the legislative roadmap, what we initially did was obviously to develop a problem statement, a policy, basically to say what is the problem, what are we intending to address, and the policy was approved by EXCO, which basically paved the way for us to start working on the Township Economy Bill. And at the moment, as mentioned, we are currently at the consultation phase. The bill has actually been gazetted, and the closing date in terms of comments and inputs and contribution to the bill, to the draft bill, is the 30th of November 2020, as highlighted on the screen. Just to jump into the object of the bill, because this is quite critical. So pretty much every other provision in the bill should seek to achieve these objects of the bill. The one is that it strives to provide a regulatory framework which makes it possible for people living in the township to establish viable and thriving businesses where they live. But also, secondly, to designate business activities within township areas that are reserved for citizens or people with permanent residence in the Republic, but also to promote and develop the diversification of the economy of the province through regulation, so that we are able to have targeted interventions in certain sectors and certain activities, to also ensure that we introduce an enabling framework so that the retail malls and supermarkets in the townships are able to partner with local-based enterprises, including the sourcing of some of the products that are produced locally. But as you recall, I think in the last week and even into this week, the Competition Commission has announced that the results of the grocery market inquiry. So basically, what has happened is that one of the findings in that study was that a lot of these big retailers use what you call exclusionary, leases, where if I'm selling certain item in a mall, I then insist that no other business can actually sell the same item in the mall, because as an anchor tenant, the assumption is that I'm bringing traffic into the mall and so forth and so forth. So basically, the Competition Commission has really moved ahead with that. I understand that ShopRite and Pick n Pay have agreed that they will waive their existing exclusionary leases. So that basically sort of is an additional further in terms of the work or how the bill is basically, the posture point around retail malls and partnering with local businesses. And so just to continue, obviously also to establish specific procurement rules and programmatic support, which basically enables us to cluster enterprises in certain instances that they're able, for example, to supply certain goods and services. As you know that in most instances, you may find that some of the goods and services that are required, whether it's by government or by private sector, one township enterprise may not be in a position to supply those. So when you basically used and deployed technology to cluster these guys that are able to provide certain services or goods at the right standard, you then obviously enable them in terms of economies of scale. So they are able to actually supply, larger clients as a group rather than as individuals. So that is quite important point to emphasize. But also just under the specific procurement, just to compel enterprises that get procurement contracts to spend certain percentage of the procurement spend on township enterprises, but also to provide enabling environment for municipalities so that they're able to develop taxi ranks into micro central business districts and support the taxi economy. At the moment, taxi ranks, the main ones are mainly just transit points, So the idea is that at some stage, while people are actually exchange or actually traveling from one point to one, they should be able to use connect Wi-Fi, use safe environments around taxi ranks to study, for example, if it's possible for young people. So taxi ranks cannot just then be transit points in that sense. So I think this intervention is quite important, I think, and there are already initiatives that have gotten off the ground to make sure that we support this initiative, but also to support the development and promotion of township-based real estate development model to convert areas that have your high commercial densities into township high streets. And lastly, to promote and support the development of representative associations of township-based enterprises and non-profit organizations. And you will know that this is quite an important point. We have an issue in our country around the business forums, and we think that there has to be that in addressing partly that problem, we need to be able to promote in a manner that will help us contribute to our developmental objectives as well. Just to jump into the, I think let me just quickly check back a bit. Doesn't make sense. So in terms of the actual document, this is pretty much how it is structured. So I just need to go back, sorry, remember, to the introduction part. So pretty much if you look at the provisions of the bill, so this is how the bill is structured. Chapter 1, it will contain what you call preliminary provisions. Chapter 2 will be designation of township enterprises. Chapter 3 is business activities reserved for citizens or permanent residents. Chapter 4 is regulation of township enterprises. Chapter 5, promotion and development of township enterprises. But also Gauteng Township Economic Development Fund is captured in Chapter 6. Chapter 7 is issues around miscellaneous provisions, and Chapter 8 general provisions, and of course the schedules that are included in there. And that is very important. I think we'll make that point later as we continue. So the first clause in terms of the bill basically relates to the definitions in terms of the key terminologies in terms and keywords used in the bill. As you know that in law you can never really just leave things to interpretation. So that is very important, and it's included in the bill. And these definitions are aligned with some of the existing ones around, for example, defining Black people, empowerment of Black people, and so forth. So those we are already in the document. But also clause 2 that provides guiding principles for which seeks to facilitate and promote inclusive growth by doing, among other things, providing for inclusive economy so that we don't leave anybody behind in terms of the development of the township, diversification of ownership patterns, facilitation of easy access by new entrants in all sectors of the economy so that we are able to achieve the transformation objectives, but also we show that there are focused interventions in certain sectors. So part of the additional documents that we provided includes also a draft list of sectors that we are proposing that should be prioritized for the township economy. And I think those are, we do provide them with the information deck that we normally distribute. So we will definitely all still need inputs around those sectors as well. Thank you. Clause 3 mainly relates to the object of the bill. Basically, what it says is that we, every other thing, we should be able to make sure that we achieve the object of the bill as cited before. Clause 4 basically provides application of the Act within provincial organs of state and municipalities. And clause 5 provides for non-derogation form. For example, here, what it does is that it gives this act or the bill at the moment and the act eventually a triumphing capability where there are conflicts in terms of different pieces of legislation. So I think that is a very important provision in terms of the bill. But also the clause provides for designation of township areas by a responsible member. So the MEC, for example, responsible in the province will then designate township areas so that we know what is a township and who is supporting the township and so forth and so forth. Clause 7 provides for the reservation of certain business activities for persons and or citizens of persons with permanent residency. But I think it's very important just to say here and maybe just clarify that contrary to what we've seen, I think obviously in the media and everywhere else around, whether are we banning, for example, foreign nationals. So that is not necessarily the case. So basically, there is nothing that is legal happening in the township that will be rendered illegitimate or illegal. But what this clause basically seeks to do is to affirm South Africans in terms of support, in terms of linking them to certain support, and so forth. And I think that is a very important distinction to make, so that it doesn't come across as a bill that is banning, as the media has sort of portrayed it to be. Yeah, so I think that is very important to just point to make. But also the clause provides for licensing of township-owned enterprises and for those undertaking certain activities in the sectors that we've mentioned before. And they obviously link those to certain incentives and benefits. Clause 9 provides for display of license, so more around compliance in terms of the enterprises that are, for example, being supported in certain sectors in the township, and that where there is a contravention and the certain penalties that are put in place. Clause 10 provides for licensing authority, obviously, to validate, because so this is quite important in terms of us being able to, for example, localizing opportunities. So where we have projects or programs in certain localities, and we want to target the citizens in that area only for that purpose, we need to be able to ensure that the issues around validation of physical addresses and where the business or trade is being conducted for tax purposes and other purposes, for example, as I'm saying, for empowerment purposes as well, if we want to zoom into one specific area and empower people in that specific area. Clause 11 provides for the formulation of monitoring of policies and programs by a responsible member of the executive, in this case, the MEC. And so pretty much it just makes provision for us to put in place a very, monitoring and evaluation system so that what we set out to do, achieve in the object of the bill is therefore realized eventually. The clause 12 provides for the formulation and development of plans and strategies by provincial organs of state to support township-based enterprises, focusing on specific areas that would have been identified, support and promotion of township-based enterprise, for example, and so forth. And focusing, of course, advancing also mainstreaming of youth, women, and persons with disabilities in all township-based programs and projects. So that is a very important point to make. Clause 13 provides for provincial organs of financial assistance through the flow of financial resources to sectors that are prioritized in this case. So this is quite important. It enables us to pretty much put measures in place to ensure that we are able to support the right enterprises in certain activities and sectors. And of course, that it also goes on to just sort of define and just zoom into the type of support and assistance that can be provided as well as part of the definition of financial assistance. Clause 14 provides for development of infrastructure and other facilities. So, for the development and promotion of sector-based township enterprises. Also, clause 15 provides for provision of industrial and commercial estates for township-based enterprise. So this economic infrastructure is quite important because if we are going to really promote manufacturing and production in the township, we need to be able to provide suitable economic infrastructure for these enterprises. And that is pretty much, I think, the emphasis that the point these clauses are making. And I think it's the same also, it was 16 plus 17 as well, plus 16 specifically, in terms of, for example, in this case, for letting of buildings and premises to support township enterprises where they're available. Because we know, for example, in some of our townships, we may find that there are schools that are no longer being used for educational purposes. So the question is, what do we do with those schools in the meantime, while we can be able to explore the possibility of linking township enterprise to those facilities for business purposes. Clause 17 provides for promotion and capacity building projects. I think it's also just straightforward. I mean, I will not get into it in the interest of time. Clause 18 mainly centers around how do we promote township products and we ensure that there are markets suitable for the township goods and services that are produced there. I was muted for a moment there. And then clause 19 is just more around promotion of technology transfers. You know, this is very important in the context of the township, that we should be able to use, how do we use technology to ensure that we advance some of the objectives that we've cited above. So I think this is quite important part of the provisions of the bill as well. So I will not necessarily also get into all the details around this, to say that so it's more around the promotion of technology transfer, acquisition, adaptation of new modern technology, so that we encourage and promote innovation and so forth. Those 20, I think 2021, 2023 mainly focuses on how we then should provide financial means to support the township economy. So one is that it proposes for the establishment of a township economic development fund, and pretty much also gets into the how part. What are the areas that we can potentially focus on, which includes like access to credit and loans, and so forth. So yeah, I will also not necessarily get into too much details around this in the interest of time, but safe to say that it is quite important that, because as you will know, honorable members, that township enterprise faces several challenges. One of those is access to the right funding, but also access to the right markets as well. So part of this is obviously to address some of those existing constraints in the economy at the moment. So this is just a continuation of the funding part provision as well. So clause 28 makes provision for the passing of model standard bylaws by the municipalities within a period of 6 months. So in terms of I think the schedules that we've attached, you'll see that there is an issue around. So basically how it works is that the model standard bylaw basically advocates that the bylaws at local level should be consistent with the object of the bill, and where they are not, they can be adopted and also reviewed so that they're consistent with the object of the bill. I think that is very important, so that you are able to obviously streamline issues around intergovernmental coordination in terms of implementation. So it's a very important, in fact, provision in the bill. So it's important for honorable members to take note of that as well. And then I think the other clause 30 just makes provision for amendment of laws, or where for example, it is necessary that the member responsible for the executive member can actually make regulations or prescribe regulations that will help achieve certain aspects of the bill. And then I think clause 31 is mainly just around the title and so forth. I think yeah, I'll give this one. You'll note that in the information that we've shared, that you've got these documenters, we've got the list of sectors and a draft list of sectors and subsectors that we are proposing. And I think, yeah, we are receiving comments also on this, but also part B in terms of designation of township areas. Schedule B make reference to the amendment of laws, but Schedule 3 is pretty much around the model standard bylaw, as I cited earlier. So issues around building standards, new commercial development, zoning, and so forth. So that is a very important point to just to restate for the purpose of this presentation. And so I'm not sure, maybe I should allow my colleague Mpumelelo, Honorable Chairperson, our legal expert, maybe he can just jump in and take this light. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You are saying you are requesting that the legal person can take us through.
Yes, just this slide. Mr. Mpumelelo Madikan is also in the
Okay, let him get in, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to the honorable members, MEC and HOD and the rest of the colleagues. Chair, at this point, I think it's important to just highlight that the process of developing a bill obviously would begin with us having done a study in terms of the constitutional provisions. We know, for example, that the province has concurrent legislative competence to enact a bill of this nature as per the functional areas that are listed under Part A of Schedule 4 of our Constitution. And further to that, Chair, in terms of Section 155, subsection 6 and 7 of the Constitution, the province also has a constitutional obligation to monitor, support, and promote the development of local government through legislative and other measures. In addition, Chair, we also have the Local Government Municipal Systems Act, which in Section 14, subsection 2, also says that the MEC for local government is basically empowered to make standard draft bylaws concerning any matter of which a municipal council in the province may make laws. And the reason we're highlighting this, Chair, is basically based on the fact that because the bill also introduces this idea of creating a standard draft bylaw, which on implication, Chair, the local municipalities would either have to adopt the standard draft bylaw or amend their own legislation in order to give effect to the objects of the bill. And just to carry on, Chair, the other matter that we've encountered, as Masha has already mentioned, because we're already engaging in public participation, we have received quite a number of comments regarding the constitutionality or the legality of the bill. And at this point, Chair, I think it's important to just mention that, for example, if you look at Section 9, subsection 3 of the Constitution, where it states that the state may not unfairly discriminate directly or indirectly against anyone on one or more grounds, including race, gender, sex, pregnancy, marital status, etc. The number of comments that we've received thus far, Chair, have suggested that this seems to be a breach of Section 9 of the Constitution. However, we hold a different view, seeing that Section 7.2 of the bill itself, which basically says certain sectors of the economy shall only be reserved for South African citizens and permanent residences. And there, Chair, the qualification is that we're not saying foreign nationals should not participate in economic activities in the Gauteng province. However, there's a provision there. It says that only those with permanent residence, Chair, are allowed to do so. And we know, Chair, that if you look, there's issues of limitation of rights in the Constitution, and there's also the notion that only a court may weigh up all the relevant factors to determine, Chair, if a discrimination is unfair or where it's unconstitutional. And maybe just to also mention in passing, Chair, if you look at even the employment of foreign nationals in our country, we have various legislation, Chair, that is already employing similar standards. The employment of foreign nationals, for example, is regulated by the Immigration Act, which provides that the foreign national shall enjoy all the rights, privileges, duties, and an obligation of a citizen. However, it's important to note, Chair, that the Immigration Act also contains an express limitation of that right to the extent that foreign nationals should not enjoy the rights or privileges and duties which ordinarily by legislation or the Constitution are explicitly ascribed to South African citizens. In addition, Chair, you also have legislation such as the Employment Equity Act, the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act, as well as the Employment Services Act, Chair. All these various legislation carry in the provisions that specifically prescribe that no other persons in the Republic with suitable skills should, be preferred over a foreign national. So the issue of contention, Chair, with the bill in its entirety has centered around the participation of foreign nationals. Because the bill says that in terms of the economic activities that we've listed in the schedule, we have asked that during the public comment stage, people should then comment as to which of those sectors that are listed should be specifically reserved for South African citizens and foreign nationals who have permanent residency status. And I think the term we like to use is affirmation. This bill seeks to affirm South African citizens more than, it's not Afrophobic or xenophobic as it has been termed. And as we've indicated, Chair, the bill says if you are a foreign national who's undocumented, for example, we cannot embrace you in terms of your participation in our economic activities. The bill is very clear to say that you need to be documented, number one, so you need to be a foreign national who's in the country legally, but over and above that, in order to participate in the business sectors, specifically in the townships that we have identified, you also need to have your permanent residency status, Chair. And you would see in the definitions, for example, the definition of what Black is and what a township is and what a township entrepreneur is, all have bearings. They've all been carefully crafted so as to form a safeguard in terms of the participation, because we know the Township Gauteng Economic Bill is only applicable to the Gauteng province and specifically to the townships. And this is predominantly because, Chair, you would note that, for example, with the proposal on the standard draft bylaw, the various municipalities all have different township schemes and different bylaws. So, for example, if you wanted to operate a certain type of business in Hammanskraal, and some of the necessary permits that would be required is a zoning information. However, we know that there's areas in Hammanskraal that aren't properly zoned. In fact, you would not get any zoning information. They normally use their tribal authority or their tribal councils as a form of proving their residence there. And we are saying, because our bylaws and our township schemes are so fragmented in how they've been set up, this already disadvantages anybody who wants to operate a township business in Hammanskraal. So the effect of this is that you could have people in the township who all engaging in the same business activity, but what would be allowed in one township and not allowed in another. Therefore, the introduction of the model bylaw, standard draft bylaw, is to basically do away with those red tapes, Chair, and introduce a system that will work uniformly throughout the Gauteng province. And the public participation framework, Chair, dictates that not only should we consider, comments and inputs that have been received, but we must also show to what extent we have done that. And in terms of the comments we've received, it's been a mixed bag. We've had people who've come out to support the bill wholeheartedly, but we've also had people who, as I've said, have labeled the bill as Afrophobic, xenophobic, and so forth. But I think, Chair, the test for us is, because we have done our provisional study of the Constitution and what we can and cannot do, the next step of the bill now, after the comments, is the pre-certification, wherein our state law advisors will then look at the issues of drafting and look at the issues of law and look at the issues of constitutionality thereof. And if there are any issues that the state law advisors would deem need urgent attention, at that point there we will then have the opportunity to do that. But in addition, we also know that the bill can also be referred to the Constitutional Court for a declaration of its constitutionality or unconstitutionality thereof. But for us right now, it's just to say that we believe this bill is charting new frontiers. We believe this bill is charting new waters for the Gauteng province, and we believe that we are putting it through the necessary tests to say that should it come out on the other side, it has implications, great implications for the province, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I think I will end there and hand over back to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the MEC and your team. We were waiting for this day. I believe, honorable members, we have noted some points for comments. I can say it's a sharing matter, because they are not accounting before us. We said they must come and brief us so that we realize what is it that other provinces are doing, more especially on the issue of job creation, as well as youth, women, and empowerment. And I think it is also in line with the priorities of our department, because currently, responding to the COVID-19 as the department, we are saying our focus area will be on township and rural entrepreneurship program, as well as dedicated informal business support, localization, and business viability. So it's up to our government to can make sure that this becomes a realistic, so that we respond to the scourge of poverty, as well as unemployment and inequality in our province. I will now invite members for comments. Thank you.
Chairperson.
You can give me the list.
The person was Honorable Kruger.
Yes.
The second hand was Honorable Zungula, and the
Yes.
third hand, Honorable Mtenjane.
Yes.
Those are the three so far, Chair.
Okay. Honorable Mbele.
Yeah, so far those
Honorable Jacobs.
Okay, Honorable Jacobs.
Honorable Jacobs and Honorable Professor Msimang.
Thank you.
Prof. Okay, then, thank you. Can we start with Honorable Kruger?
Yes, thank you, ma'am, and Chair, and thank you for the presentation as well. Madam Chair, centralization is not a workable solution for anything. And this bill is just going to increase more red tape for the poor small business on the ground. I mean, we listened to the district model last week, and this bill is actually overriding the district model. And I can't see why the district model, with their bylaws, and why can't municipalities with bylaws fix all these problems? The other part of this bill is actually just legislate the department's mandate. I mean, the department got a mandate for financing and all this other CIFA, CIDA, everybody got a mandate. Now we legislate their mandate. So we step on the department more red tape. We actually also the municipalities, there's bylaws in the municipalities. All that provinces have to do is to monitor municipalities and get municipalities so far to get their bylaw database and bylaws into place so that they can benefit small businesses. Ma'am, I'm not happy at all. I'm actually frightened when I listen to this bill. But thank you. That's my comment.
Thank you, Honorable Kruger, for your comments. As I've said that we're making comments because this is just information sharing, but it's good to advise each other. Honorable Zungule.
Thank you, Chair. I note that you are saying we must only make comments, but I think we should be allowed to just get clarity-seeking questions so that we may be empowered in terms of understanding where we're not really quite certain on some of the issues that we've seen on the bill. But before I get to my clarities as well as comments, suggestions, I want to state that because this bill and process started in 2014 already, in my quite a lot of work has been done, and we need to commend Gauteng for actually doing something to affirm South African citizens in the economy. I know a lot of people will say this is xenophobic or Afrophobic or all of these degrading terms that seek to further make South Africans to be poor, particularly Black people. But the truth is, all countries in the world reserve certain sectors of the economy for their own citizens. Therefore, it cannot be that when South Africa is following and is catching up with the rest of these other countries, it is termed xenophobic. Now, the first suggestion I'm having is that perhaps the bill must also speak to a structured way of encouraging procurement from local producers in all of the economic spaces in townships, because it is to the advantage of our country if majority of the goods in the shops of the informal traders or in the township traders are produced locally. There's no reason why majority of the products sold in our townships are from international companies. I've got quite a number of clarity-seeking questions. The first one is, currently, the visa requirements state that 5 million must be invested by a person who's not a citizen of South Africa should they want to trade in our country. Currently, this is not happening. So how do they, how does the bill take into account that reality, that this is what the current legislation is saying in our country, but it is not enforced? And secondly, there are concerns about the bill will encourage fronting and will increase immigrants acquiring fraudulent documents. how do you, what's your take on the issues of fronting as a result of the bill? Another one which is very critical that you have termed or named this bill to be the Gauteng Township Economic Development Bill. Now, when you say township, and in the same breath, you talk about restricting the participation of non-citizens in the sectors, a lot of people will assume or think about particular foreign nationals. Now, is it not maybe, whereas in your definition, you've defined township as any area in which you can designate, even if it's not a township. Now, is it not maybe best to change the word township so that you do not appear to be xenophobic? Then lastly, would you advise the portfolio committee to work towards making this bill national, particularly on the reservation of certain sectors for the benefit of the citizens? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Zungolo, and thanks for the input. I think your remark of saying that we thought we can also ask a clarity-seeking question, and not only a clarity-seeking question, but also to input, because since the bill is still for public comments, you are on the right track, Honorable Member. Don't feel offended. Maybe I might have put it in another way, but what you are saying exactly, and the reason why we have agreed to share this information is to empower ourselves as the portfolio committee, which is doing oversight in this department. Thank you so much. The next speaker is Honorable Ntenjana. Over to you, Honorable.
Oh, once again, thank you very much, Chairperson. Yeah, as much as the Chair has already said that it is not necessarily the fact that they are counting here on us, on this committee. Yes, but this that we hear from this bill, it's something that we should have done or should have happened long time ago, I mean 26 years ago. Now, I'm saying this because, or as I go further, you will understand why I'm saying this. Now, I'll start by saying the following issues, therefore, needs to be clarified or addressed with us here. Who will be the drivers and implementers of this bill once promulgated into law? That we should like to know as well. I'm saying that because there are organizations such as this. What will be the role of the National Federated Chamber of Commerce, that is NAFCO, in this regard? Because we do have COC here, which similarly, it looks like it represents the same thing that the bill is representing. Now, I'm saying that because you will remember that the formation of NAFCO was primarily to address the township economy as this bill as well. So where is NAFCO located within the small business setup in the government? And I think also the small business desk must seriously look at the role and the elevation of NAFCO before even we begin to think of another duplicate of structures, which will serve nothing but the milking cow of those political connected, like we see in the defunct SOEs. Now, Chairperson, I'm not also sure here because it looks like this bill is concentrating mostly in Gauteng, Gauteng, which is a province in South Africa. Now, it looks like we are now dividing the country into segmented secondary countries. Why don't we have a bill that will include the country, all the provinces as South Africa, not one province in Gauteng? Because what is happening in Gauteng, you might find that it's also happening in Guyana, in the township, somewhere in Guyana, or somewhere in KwaZulu-Natal. So the similar things happening. So why can't we make a bill that is going to cover the whole of our country instead of covering instead of bills that are covering particular provinces in our country? Yeah, that is as far as I can say for now, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Mtenjana. Some of the things I would request our officials in the portfolio committee to assist in clarifying certain issues. I'm chairing, I can't be a referee and the player at the same time, but based on what Honorable Mtenjana has said, my observation is that we need to get some clarity from our, more especially on the issue of bills, because unfortunately, Honorable Mtenjana joined us very, very late. We had an opportunity of induction on certain issues, but I would like that our officials here, in particular Gumede, maybe indicate certain things, but not necessarily the province itself. However, I appreciate your comments. It's building the what you call the portfolio committee. At this stage, I will invite the next speaker on my list, which is Honorable Mbele. Honorable Mbele.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you to the officials for the presentation. I think it obviously shouldn't come as a surprise that much of the focus and feedback about this provincial bill would center on the issue of how it frames the participation of immigrants and foreign nationals in the economy. I'm not going to get into terribly much detail because this is something that will be processed in the Gauteng legislature. So that's for the MPLs there to grapple with. But the only clarity that I was seeking is really about precisely what the bill is trying to achieve with regard to that issue on, I believe it's clause 6, if I, I'm sorry, not clause 6, I forget now, but yeah, the clause later that sort of gives some framing and fleshing to that. Just scrolling here to see, yeah, sorry, it's clause 7. Because if I look at what it says, with reference in particular to the, let me see what it is here, it's with reference to the Immigration Act. Basically, my reading is that the bill would be creating a mechanism which would really only affect asylum seekers and refugees in terms of their being eligible to operate in the designated economic sectors. And therefore, any foreign-born immigrant who does become a citizen or a permanent resident would not be subject to those limitations. So it seems like quite a narrow sort of segments that would be affected. And then my other reading of it, because of the fact that it's specifically about what would be formally designated townships under section clause 2, I think it was. My other reading of it is that basically it would make a situation where a compliant immigrant-owned business would be able to operate without hindrance in, say, Clinton Park, but then not in say Katlehong, you know. And I'm not certain what that distinction aims to achieve. So the main point that I think the whole committee could agree on is that, you know, effective enforcement of any reasonable legal requirements for immigrant-owned businesses is one thing that's good and well. That's simply about the rule of law. But we know that even that hasn't been happening properly over the last 15, 20, 25 years. So I guess the only comment and suggestion is that maybe it's about going back to basics and ensuring effective, consistent enforcement of legislation as it stands around taxation, around all the issues that are being highlighted. Because I'm not sure what these new detailed provisions would achieve. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mbele. The next speaker on my list is Honorable Jacobs. Over to you, Honorable Jacobs.
Thank you, Chair. And let me also commend the Gauteng leadership under the MEC for this bill. The bill might come across as controversial, but it begins to address a fundamental debate around how do we build and reform and build a shared and inclusive economy. Now, I think whilst a lot of people are focusing on the foreign nationals vis-a-vis the black, I think the bill tries to affirm South Africans and permanent residents, and that point was well made, and it will stand up to constitutional muster. But I think the critical thing that we as a portfolio must debate about, can the bill begin to bring the informal and the formal economy together? And I think that's the fundamental issue here, that the high street of Sandton and the informal of Alexander Township is 2 worlds apart. So even though they're 1 kilometer away from each other, they don't coexist and they don't mutually reinforce. And we know that we have a highly monopolized capital. So if we have a company, let's say Pick n Pay and one of the other on the 4 top retail food chains, they have the monopoly of food retailing. And if they go into the townships, they can outbuy and outshine a spaza shop in that Alexandra Township area. And so therefore this bill begins to affirm the rightful place of township and the rural economies in the broader economy. We talk about a circular economy where money that is generated in the townships stay in the townships. We talk about small business helping each other. So when we support a small business, we support not a multinational company that takes the money out of the township, but we actually support a tailor, a bread maker, and that person then can buy school fees and can help that whole community. And so I think this committee must see the politically correctness of this bill. This bill, it's about mainstreaming township and the rural economies. And I share the sentiments that this portfolio committee must explore ways how this bill can be broadened to have a national footprint and framework. It's a real pity that the minister and the department is also not putting their voice in the portfolio committee to help and guide and navigate this process. And I want to commend you, Chair, for putting this on the agenda, even though it's only from Gauteng, because what we are picking up is that a similar process is happening in Mpumalanga, where the MEC from Mpumalanga is doing a similar bill. A similar process is happening in KZN, where people are seeing that something's got to give, and COVID has exposed the great inequalities. And so I think as a committee, we must grapple with not only foreign nationals. Yes, they're part of the economy, and yes, they must be formalized, and yes, they must have a right to do business with our within the context, but that must be within the constitutional master of the human rights. So I think it's something that we must grapple with. I would recommend that we get more presentation from other provinces, but I certainly want us to get as a parliament to see if there isn't a rationale for us having a similar bill going through the parliament process, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Jacobs. The next speaker on my list is Prof. Msmank. Honorable.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. To a large extent, I've been covered by colleagues that spoke before me, so I'll try to be short and just emphasize a few issues. Firstly, I must agree with colleagues who see this bill as actually having elements or all characteristics of a national statute, because the townships are not only in Gauteng, they are throughout South Africa, and they grapple with the same problems that Black entrepreneurs are grappling with in Gauteng. So I'm searching in my mind as to how can we bring this to the attention of those who are legislating, that they've got material which could help the whole of South Africa, because I see it as an attempt to empower the Black entrepreneur in the townships who is squeezed out of big business. They're finding it very difficult to compete in the urban areas. And the urban areas are extending into the townships with their malls and other businesses. So the African entrepreneur is really squeezed out of business. I think it was President Mbeki who talked about economy A and economy B. Now, if that for Black people is economy B, it does need legal support of the kind of this bill to empower them, but not on a provincial basis, on a national basis. And secondly, I also commend the government of Gauteng in taking initiative, because this is the initiative that should have been taken by central government to say, how do we accommodate Black entrepreneurs in the townships? How do we empower them? Because they are being squeezed out not only of big business, but also of employment. When we consider that as a result of COVID-19, 2.2 million people have lost their jobs. You may find that over 90% of those people are Blacks from the townships and also the rural areas. So I commend them that they did something positive, which the government, central government should have done. If it's done on a provincial basis, it also has overlaps and conflicts with national legislation, because nationally we have a policy which says the foreigners will only be allowed to come and trade in South Africa if they have rare skills or which we do not have locally. So if we say foreigners but who have a permanent residency in South Africa are allowed to compete, then we are breaching that legislation which says they may not if they are not bringing rare skills. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Before the team led by the MEC respond to certain clarity-seeking questions, I would request Gumede just to brief the what you call the committee on how bills are established and who is allowed to establish a bill. What is it that should happen? Just to support those speakers who are speaking on this matter. But I would request that the MEC with a team respond to certain issue, and then I will close the session. Sbu?
Chairperson, excuse me, it's King. Before maybe Mr. Gumede, there's a hand from Honorable Zungula. I think he wanted to say something so that they can just respond once.
Okay, Honorable Zungula, over to you.
No, thank you, Chair. I did not lower my hand, but I've lowered it now. I'm covered.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Sbo, I don't know whether you understand what I'm requesting from your side.
Yeah, yes, Chairperson. Good afternoon, Chairperson. Good afternoon, honorable members. Chair, I'll be very brief. I'll be very brief because this is not a new matter, actually. It was discussed at length during the 5th Parliament. Without diving into the merits or demerits of the bill, the Gauteng bill, I have a feeling, Honorable Chairperson, that if you look at this bill through the lens of trying to sideline foreigners, we are going to miss the real objects of this particular bill. In 2013, honorable members, there was a, it's just that the wording is different. There was a bill that was done by the Department of Trade and Industry. It's called Licensing of Business Bill 2013. The intention of that particular bill was to replace the Business Act 71 of 1991. The Gauteng one is slightly different from these particular ones, but if you look at it broadly, the objective is more or less the same. Such that during the 5th Parliament, one of the issues we raised consistently as the Portfolio Committee was to say, we need to review this bill and move forward with it. We also made an observation that after we had visited in Mpumalanga, we discovered that there is something of similar that is being done by Mpumalanga province. We also, after visiting KZN, we picked up that there is also a similar bill that is being done by KZN. I think Western Cape as well, they're doing more or less the same thing. So the view was, rather than having different provinces coming up with these different bills and acts, we need, as the Portfolio Committee, to push the department to review or to finish the bill that had been started by the Department of Trade and Industry. And unfortunately, it hasn't happened. So my view, Chairperson, would be maybe as a Portfolio Committee, we need a separate slot where we will go through or we will review what are some of the bills or acts that we want a Department of Small Business Development to champion during the 6th Parliament, because it's not only around this one, the review of the Business Act, which was under the domain of the Department of Industry, Department of Trade and Industry, before this department was created. We also have a National Small Enterprise Act that needs to be reviewed. I understand there is a view from the department to say they will only submit to a parliament during the 6th Parliament, only the Ombudsman bill. I stand to be corrected, Akon. So I think as a Portfolio Committee, Honorable Chairperson, in short, perhaps we need a slot to go through all the bills that we want the Department of Small Business Development to submit to a Portfolio Committee. Also, should be there a view among the members that if we feel that the department perhaps is moving slowly, there is nothing stopping a Portfolio Committee from starting its own bill. It's perfectly allowed in terms of the rules of Parliament. I'm not going to talk about the private members bill, which is also allowed for the members to come up with the private members bill. But my view is once we have this session as a Portfolio Committee where we list the bills that we want the department to introduce to Parliament, perhaps we will then come up with a decision to say this particular one, let the Portfolio Committee move with it. And then as a secretariat or officials within the Parliament, we can begin the process of putting all the paperwork in place. I'm not sure, Chairperson, if I'm answering your question correctly or in a manner that is satisfactory to the member.
Yeah, I can allow members maybe because I don't want to put them in a corner to make some follow-up questions so that you can assist. But my intention on this matter was for you to highlight what you have inducted us, Gucci. Bills, what is a bill, and is it who's allowed to establish a bill, at what stage can one be able to do that? Because I don't want us to move out here trying to criticize that what has been presented before us is wrong. I have analyzed the response from members. They're just raising certain issues, but they're not in oppose of the bill, because the bill seeks to assist our people, more especially the one who said townships are not in Joburg only. They cut across the country. But what is important for us is to make sure that we're still in line with the constitution, and our country is a non-racial country. And again, on issues of the xenophobic, that's where we're clear. But at the very same time, is the responsibility of this portfolio committee to can make sure that what the department has planned is being implemented. Again, issues which we feel there are problems for us as the portfolio committee in support with our small business on the ground are being unlocked on issues of red tapes, as some have has indicated. But you have answered some of my requests. I wanted you just to clarify on the issue of the establishment of bills, maybe before I go back to honorable members and the department and the province of Gauteng.
Okay, Chair. Okay, you mean the parliamentary one or the executive one? Because there is an executive one that will be done by the department, or it takes a different process from the one of the parliament. The one of the parliament will obviously follow the rules of the parliament, where the portfolio committee will initiate that particular bill, or the private members bill will initiate that particular bill. Then the drafting process is done internally by Parliament with our legal section. Then it goes through the whole procedure. Where, for instance, where it differs would be the Parliament does not have its own internal capacity in terms of socio-economic assessment. Remember, there is that CS section at the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, which after the departments have developed the bill, it is then subjected to DPME to ensure that in terms of that CS process, does it also meet all the standards that are set out in there. I can share that documentation, Chairperson, but that's where we differ, that in our case, the procedure is our bill as a parliament. It's a contradiction, so to speak, to say due to the separation of powers, we find ourselves in a scenario where we take the parliamentary bill and give it to the executive for its evaluation. I can share some of this documentation, Chairperson, with honorable members, just to give them insight as to this particular dilemma. But there are two, Chairperson. There's one that is being done by the department. The licensing of business bill, for instance, that I was referring to earlier on, was done by the Department of Trade and Industry. It was abandoned because the department was divided into two, with the Department of Small Business Development having been created in 2014. The assumption was DSBD will then continue with that particular bill, but it hasn't happened. Is it that fine, Chairperson?
Yeah, it's fine, Sbu. It's fine. I think you have covered some of the things. I wanted just you to clarify that Parliament can come up with a bill, government can come up with a bill. I wanted that clarity. So yeah. I'm heading over now to the MEC with your team just to respond to certain questions and comments. Over to you, MEC.
Once again, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I'm going to request that I keep my video off for better connectivity. Let me start by really acknowledging and you know commending members on their comments and inputs. Um, some of the inputs are technical, so for those I will allow my team to respond to. But I think the starting point for me is what most of the members said in terms of, the sense that members have that this bill should have a national footprint. But there was a comment in the chat that spoke to Section 104 of the Constitution, which I think honorable members are aware of. And that is one of the legislative frameworks that informs how provinces, or whether as to whether provinces can come up with their own bills. So we are aware of those. And Honorable Chair, you will remember earlier on what you said. I think you, in a way, touched on this. I think the sense I get is that members are in support of the bill, especially the fact that it will be assisting people who have been disadvantaged over a period of time, and that it will allow them to at least participate in the economy of, well, because this particular bill is inward looking, in the economy of Gauteng. So for the members to have their own bill, which is national, we can only offer our support as you are offering your support to us at this present moment. Honorable Mbele, I think your questions were more technical. I will leave that. They were not questions per se, but they were your observations, I think, that need to be responded to if you allow it, Chair. So that technical, I'll allow the team to do that. Professor Msimang spoke about the importance of the national statutes. That also, Chair, I think I will leave to the team to speak to, but also, again, here we can only give support. Honorable Mtenjani spoke about the drivers of the act. Once it becomes an act, who are going to be. I'll also allow the technical team to speak to this, but what I can say, what I want to respond to is the relationship that we have with NAFCOG. NAFCOG is one of our partners, is one of our stakeholders. About 2 weeks ago, we had a very extensive meeting with them around the bill. They are helping us on the process of taking this bill on a public participation. They have made comments as well, but they also have their own proposals on how the township economy can be revitalized or changed or supported. So we are in conversation with them. We are not leaving them out of the loop. There was also mention about localization by Honorable Zungulu. I hope I pronounce your surname properly. If not, please forgive me. But in this regard, we have a policy, internal policy, so I won't necessarily talk to it in detail now, but the bill is aligned to that. And what I can share with the committee is that the localization policy, its main tenet is that we are starting with our own departments. So because we can't, if we're going to legislate on anything, we are the first line of obedience of those, the policies and the acts that we are putting in place. Yeah, as to the fact that, yes, Honorable Mtenjani, that this is, you said 26 years late. Yeah, I agree with the fact that it is late. It should have come earlier, but it's never too late to start. And yeah, somebody has got to start. This bill, like Honorable Jacobs said, its intention is not necessarily to exclude foreign nationals. Its intention also is to affirm South Africans, but it also gives foreign nationals who are compliant an opportunity to participate in the township economy. So its intention is not to exclude anyone. So Chair, if you allow, I will hand over to members of my team who can then respond to the technical areas of the inputs. a ke itse gore ke mang molona wa tlo buang tu ke kopa le reng jalo gore re respect the committee. Thank you.
You are at liberty to can do that.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, MEC and Honorable Chairperson and the members. I think we know a lot of the comments that have been submitted, especially in terms of maybe, rephrasing certain words and so forth. We appreciate that. But just to say, I think my colleagues will also jump in and contribute. Jack will also step in. But in terms of the first question, I think the main object of the bill are quite clear, really. So where we speak about at a convergence of many, pieces of legislation at the local space, we see that there is a bit of contradiction in terms of the impact that is intended. Hence, the intention is to basically to streamline those, and that is very important. So it's not necessarily going to increase the red tape. In fact, it is addressing red tape in the manner in which it is currently structured, and it basically enabling easy access to certain things. For example, formalization, registration of business, access to support, and so forth and so forth. So those are some of the benefits I think that the bill sort of proposes. But I think the NAFCOC question, I think MEC has correctly responded to it, so I will not attempt that. And maybe I'll allow Jack to come in and respond to some of the questions that honorable members have raised as well. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. Just for those that don't know me, I know we've met some of the committee members in previous hearings. Jack Kossip, I work with you in the Premier's office from the policy unit and priority project side, and we've been supporting the department in this very important piece of legislation. So just to note, and I think it's important to look at this a little bit thematically, because the comments from the honorable members are very useful in terms of what we need to clarify. So firstly, there's some big institutional thematic issues that have been raised by the members. One of them is the question of whether provincial government is the right place to do this. And we entirely understand the logic of saying, well, this should be a national process. We do believe that there is value in looking, again, as Mpumi from the legal side has directed us, towards the Constitution, to understand that we are the custodians of regional economic policy, which by its very nature has to be a regional calibration or refinement of national economic policy. And in the context of that we are a logical place for this convergence to happen, because there is a level of streamlining. As Masha has pointed out, and he's completely correct, we've done extensive background research on this, and it's almost a consensus position across all kinds of different constituencies from all sides of the political spectrum that the current bylaws and the current regulations are either poorly designed or not enforced, or both. And the reason for that is, realistically, that there's all kinds of different regimes that have never been properly calibrated for the reality of our most dense urban areas, in particular our townships. So to answer, for example, the Honourable Member Mbele's question around why do we treat Katlehong differently from Kempton Park, there's a very straightforward reason. Kempton Park isn't 90% informal, and that figure isn't a supposition. That's drawn from basically township economic geography surveys we've done at scale, where we can tell you for a fact that 90% of township-based enterprises do not have a business bank account. That means that they're not accessing financing, they're not accessing insurance. If we look at, we had the privilege of listening to the first presentation that you heard as a committee, which focuses on that very Indian, Bangladeshi style village bank, Grameen bank model. In the context of Gauteng, and in the context of our world with these highly urbanized township areas that need to be affirmed and integrated, that used to be dormitories, that used to simply be places where workers slept in order to travel to and from the economic core, these areas have never had the opportunity to develop their own high streets, their own precincts, their own internal economic engines, their own light manufacturing zones. And if you look at why, part of the reason is because the overall structure of those areas was never re-legislated properly post-apartheid. And this is part of what this bill is really correcting. It's not saying that townships have to be the ultimate destiny of the majority and there will forever be areas that are defined by informality. Quite the opposite. It's trying to say there was an apartheid spatial economic geography that was very deliberate for the period that it was in force. And it created certain very deep conditions on the ground. And we are fighting the long shadow of that, as well as the long shadow of various policy failures under democracy. We now have to basically affirm townships as areas and give them the opportunity to have a different kind of legislative treatment that gives them the opportunity to connect with all the advantages of formality. And I think this is the big distinction that Gauteng is really driving. It's not just about making it easier for a spaza shop to get a business license. It's about making sure that spaza shop operates within a high street precinct, et cetera, that is zoned for commercial activity, that the realities of business in these much denser areas are not governed by the same laws that govern operations in commercial, residential, and industrial sites that are well established, where the laws are well worked out. Because if 9 out of 10 businesses are not within the context of formal regulation, which is what our research is showing us, then it means that our laws are neither safeguarding nor preventing malfeasance nor enabling those businesses to grow. So effectively, there are areas where we are under this bill, and we are confident will become an act, creating new legislative frameworks. It's true. So if you look at what we're going to be doing for the establishment of funding, for example, where we are creating funds of funds that can be processed via intermediaries that are very good at working with township-based businesses and can reduce the risk of non-payment. This is a critical area where the PFMA doesn't really give us a meaningful way to do it. We have to extend the reach of existing instruments to be able to execute. So in this sense, Gauteng can act as what is internationally called a regulatory sandbox. So it's a way for the nation to test, for the Republic to test ways of doing things with us as the first implementer. And I think we would encourage the committee, or I would encourage the committee, to think of it that way. The question of integration of asylum seekers, by the way, has come up at various points. Obviously, we're grappling with a much bigger issue that the Act can't resolve, well, our Act can't resolve by itself. Your colleagues on the Home Affairs Portfolio Committee will know very well, and I'm sure many of the honourable members are well versed in this issue. The Refugee Act and the Immigration Act are based on international covenants that deal with reasons that people can seek asylum seeker status. And it's probably not as widely known as it should be that those reasons can't be economic. If you're applying to be an asylum seeker, you've got to be fleeing war, disaster, persecution, a number of other things. And those grounds are not that where you come from is poorer or has less economic opportunity than where you are going to. But obviously, that is one of the real drivers of immigration in a lot of people's context. And that is one of the major reasons that people cross continents and cross deserts and do all kinds of crazy things and pay people exorbitant sums of money to sneak them across borders. Now, the challenge in South Africa, we've got a refugee system that is obviously very, very, as with the international systems, has a very long queue. And while the asylum seekers are in that queue and are seeking to prove to us as a country that they have legitimate cause to fear if they return to their countries, they are permitted to work to sustain themselves. And this is what has created this condition where the asylum seeker permit becomes almost a de facto work permit. It means that we do have to consider the key elements that go into that, and we can't solve this problem of the status of economic migration through the context of this bill. What we can do is say, as we are expanding the net of formality, we are affirming South Africans in terms of the support that is provided as we expand that net. That is really the institutional position that we are trying to navigate, but it is complex. And I think on that, if we'll defer to the honourable members, I would suggest that also, if it's permissible, and also from the Premier's office, our head of policy would obviously have a lot to say on this issue as well. And I think he would also be well placed to respond to some of the technical issues. Just before I do one last comment is that the MEC is quite correct. The NAFCOC engagement was very fruitful. And one of the institutional issues we picked up there was that there is a need to recognize almost a reference group or some kind of oversight structure, which the bill does make provision for. And the idea of whether we engage older, more established, more legitimate umbrella organizations and townships is something NAFCOC is drawing up proposals on. Because obviously what you want is a genuine enabler of access, as opposed to gatekeepers that are just going for 30% of contracts or calling themselves business forums, but actually are covers for organized criminality. But yeah, I'll pass over to Ndu with the permission of the committee, if that's permitted, as part of the technical team.
Thank you, honorable members. Here we are.
Thank you very much.
Let me take this opportunity and thank all the participants and their good selves. This, to me, it was an eye-opener. As the portfolio committee, we've got the role to play to make sure that our people on the ground are being assisted. Thank you so much. We have come to the end of our meeting. MEC and your team, thank you so much. Come again. We wish you well moving forward with your main. Thank you. The meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chairperson.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, honorable members. Thank you very much, and bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Brin. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Akona.
Thanks, Ken. It has been a long day since 9:30.
Yeah.
But it was fruitful.
Yeah, it was very
Very
fruitful.
Very fruitful.
Akona, are you sharp?
All right, good morning.
Okay, sure.
Really?
Nobisa.
Really? Really?
Next week.
Next week. Okay, that's fine.
Honorable Babalo, did you get your documents on time this time?
Yes, sir. I bought them. Thank you very much.
But you don't acknowledge the receipt.
I do acknowledge also you are trying to improve, sir. Thank you. Ay. When you supported me.
Honorable Pritchett, how are you, ma'am?
Bye-bye, breaking. Chairperson Sekona, bye, Chair.
Bye, sis. Bye-bye.
Honorable Pritchett, are you fine? Enwabisa mbona uDodo ukuthi unjani?
No, Mark. I'm going to remember that 600.
Madonsel. Madonsel. Jabonakala.
Ubonakala.
Hayibo.
Ubonakala.
Jabonakala.
Ngathi umgijimi.
Yini madonsela?
Ngathi umgijima
Ngenzeni?
awubonakali ngathi umgijima awubonakali.
Ngoku ninjani ngoku? Ngoku ndithi ndisebenza kakuhle emsebenzini ndiseparlament. Andibona ngoku?
Anguboni ngathi umgijimi.
Isonke hayi unomona. Unomona.
Awubonakali. Awubonakali.
Ndizama ukuba mandibonakale nje.
Ngathi umgijima awubonakali. Awubonakali ngathi umgijima umhlophe nje. Okay, sharp.
Okay, sabonana ne.
Sharp.
Okay, makube kuhle. All right.